Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sales TV and another exciting morning of debate and conversation about the world of sales, about what's going on, about what isn't going on in many instances, and what are the learnings? What are the fashions and the trends that we're seeing? What are the challenges that we're seeing? And I was having a conversation with Anne. Oh, let's introduce ourselves first. I'll go first because I'm the one speaking at the moment. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm the host of the show today. Andy.
Andy Huff, long-time salesperson, founder of the Institute of Sales Professionals and lecturer in sales leadership and performance at Cranfield University.
Alex.
Good morning, all. Alex Abbott, founder of Sapiro. We're a proud DLA Ignite partner and also a fellow of the ISP. Proud fellow of the ISP.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say that I was a member of the ISP, leader of the ISP actually. Anyway, it's
sound frankly like Gary Glitter when you say leader like that. So be careful, mate.
Yeah, thanks for that, Andy. That's much appreciated and a great start to the day.
No, it's always nice to be put in that high esteem, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. So you and I were having a chat yesterday, and you had a great idea about something that we should discuss today. So do you want to kick that off?
I've had a sleep since then, and I forgot what was saying. Really?
That's a good idea then.
No, I think what we do is look. Last week I was somewhere, and I started playing around asking, what are the number of sales and marketing roles in B2B in the UK, and Statistica came up with a set of data, and it kind of showed that we've been going up even through the pandemic. The numbers of people in sales and marketing and associated roles have gone up and up and up. And then this year, 2023, it's dropped by almost 100,000. And considering our episodes before, we kind of chatted and riffed about, is it about getting salespeople out the door, or people putting red lines through positions and stuff like that? I then went and had a look at open headcount, which we've talked about before. And there's about 100,000 open headcount. And so actually when you correlate kind of the two together, the issue is that, we are potentially as an industry just running off a cliff like lemmings, because it's not about the fact that we're letting people go. We're in a tight labour market. And I sent some images around that which we might share later on. But and whilst that labour market is softening, the reality of the situation is there's still a lot of open positions compared to the amount of people who want to go and work in those. And that's the issue, I think, in sales, which is we've got this kind of almost perfect storm that people are walking away and retiring from it. And actually, young people are walking away from it as well and consciously not falling into it. And if I look at my own experience, I fell into sales. I did a geography degree. Didn't really know what I wanted to do apart from do the milk round. Assume the milk round is still called the milk round in universities, and that's the problem. We've got these double effects on sales, and as an industry now, I think we've got to double down on communicating why it's so attractive and why it can be so liberating and provide upward social mobility and all of those other things would be great for the economy and great for global trade. But I think we also need to do that in the context of well-being. I don't know, Alex, that's a really important thing for you, but we've also got to change the way that we embody salespeople and how we look after them and how we look after their well-being and happiness. Because if we don't, then the problem's only going to get worse and worse and worse, because actually this group in the middle are going to leave as well.
The UK numbers you're sharing there, Andy, are they? Yeah. I must be one of the few that actually wanted to get into B2B sales. You touch on a really interesting point there in terms of salespeople's well-being, and I think how how unfortunate it is often for salespeople to be put under so much pressure because all the business cares about is what they can deliver that quarter. And as soon as that quarter's over, they're almost forgotten about. And that must impact it does impact people's stress levels and mental health. And there's a stat I saw recently about 63% of salespeople suffer with poor mental health. 61% of sales leaders are now suffering with poor mental health in 2022, which is up considerably from 2021. And I think it's something like 79% of salespeople are stressed or severely stressed in their role.
And so the chair of my doctorate, so in universities you basically have somebody who always looks at your doctorate at key deliverable points, and Monica Franco has been running some research with cohorts in Cranfield's strategic sales leadership program. So it's an open course, happens 2-3 times a year. And where she's been focusing on, which is really quite interesting as a unit of analysis, is the kind of motivations of sales managers. And I think there's always been this perception, Adam and Alex, that sales management, when you're in it, you're all about intrinsic motivation. It's about you and the number and climbing the corporate ladder and being sort of like super successful, and you retire as senior vice president in some company. And actually, the data doesn't show that. The data shows that actually most sales leaders are quite extrinsically motivated. They care about their people, but they're kind of doing this imposter behavior because that's what the corporation wants. And that's really, really fascinating. That then you add that. So I was at my doctor's having an annual health check. And he was talking. He was the head of clinical practice at a very big medical provider in the UK, and he was saying that they have to go out as senior practitioners and go and pitch to big corporates about why that big corporate should put that healthcare program that they've got for their employees with them. And he actually turned around and he went, he said, I've had no training for it. I said, I'm a doctor. He said, I've spent years and years and years talking about this in medical terms. And he said, now I have to go out and talk about commercial terms. And he said something again, which is, I feel like an imposter. I have to take this environment where I'm really cool and I know everything that there is to know about the anatomy and how people feel and what questions to ask. And I have to go out and then put this completely different persona on, and it causes stress. And it then got me thinking is, how about all of the people in the world that do commercial activity, or let's call it sell, and they're not actually professionals even in sales, and they're not meant to be, and I'm not saying they should be. They're an accountant, they're an engineer, they're a lawyer, they're a medical practitioner, and it's really interesting when you dig into that. There's this massive proportion of society that is under imposter syndrome because we give them no support on the very core. And that doesn't only bring you back to Dan Pink, which is to sell is human. Everybody has to sell in some form. And we just don't celebrate it. We don't actually go, you know what? It's the core of everything.
Yeah. Well, I think that's certainly true. So I was talking earlier this week to a sales leader, and I'm kind of mentoring this person, and we were talking about how sales teams operate these days. So the company reports its forecast, which is quite ambitious, and the markets like the forecast, which is quite ambitious. So this trickles down from board to regional VPs to SVPs to VPs to sales leaders to salespeople. And basically, okay, Andy, this is what you're going to sell this year. This is what you have to sell this year. That's the message that is sent out to you, which is, nothing has changed. Your training hasn't changed. the market has potentially become more challenging than it was last year. You failed to make your target last year. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise your target this year, despite
Yes.
the fact that you're facing stronger headwinds this year. Because I think that for people further up the organization, the belief is that you made 80% of your target last year. That's because you weren't motivated enough to make 100% of your target this year. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise your target because you'll make 80% of your target this year. So if we make the number we need to achieve as an organization 80% of the number we're telling you we need to achieve as an organization, then we'll achieve the number that we need to achieve as an organization. And the fundamental problem with this is that increasing the pressure on the individuals that are at the coalface is fundamentally bad. It's bad because they perform less well. If you go into a meeting and you're relaxed and confident and comfortable, you're able to think more effectively and you're likely to deliver a better result. If I take that away by making you stressed when you walk into the meeting, you're likely to deliver a less effective result. Also, there's the long-term damage, as you said, Andy, about being under pressure and the mental health implications of that. Your feelings of self-worth. This is the 25th year on the trot that I haven't made my number. Actually, is it any wonder people are leaving? Because they're saying, I'm living on my base salary. I'm not ever really making my bonus. I'm never achieving my number. I'm not cut out for sales. What I should do is I should become a milkman and do the milk round like you did. And actually this is the thought process that people are going through. And the more that we force them into this alley, the more that is the inevitable outcome for that. People become sick, they become stressed, they become disillusioned, they genuinely believe your point about imposter syndrome. They genuinely believe that actually I'm not cut out for this, even though they may be absolutely brilliant at selling and brilliant at forging relationships.
Yeah, that point that Mark McDermott makes, like what you said, Adam, we need to unpack. But I want to hit that one head on because I feel, I mean, I don't have the evidence. You might have some numbers to share, Andy, but I don't think salespeople are paid a lot more than others within the organization. Maybe that was once the case, but I feel like, a senior project manager or a senior product person or whoever it might be within an organization are paid similarly to salespeople.
Yeah. So the reason I'm looking at it is I'm trying to. It was again statistically yesterday. Looked at the salaries of professionals in the graduate. So what degree had they done? What higher education had they done? And what age ranges? And the biggest one was medical. You're up around the potential $500,000 mark, and I'm not getting into the NHS discussion around that, but medical. Then law. And then they went rapidly down. But to your point, sales wasn't standing out as a particular one. And I think the comments that you're making are back to motivation again, aren't they? So if the concept is you're comfortable on 80% of your earnings, that's because science actually has looked at it and gone, now money is okay to a point, and then there's not much more. If I throw an extra $100,000 at you, I don't get an extra 100% effort. That's again down to intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation of people, not just salespeople. But we haven't understood that, and it's great points that were made by, Steve, that said, there are great people that just do it well. And there are people, if you've not got that natural ability, that struggle. And really, isn't that our job as leaders to help those people who are struggling move up the curve and become brilliant?
It is. I mean, I do think that we have this dichotomy, don't we, in sales? So when I worked with Alex at Oracle, there were salespeople that earned 7 figures, ultra high performance, and with the accelerators and the kickers and everything that they got on their bonuses, they would go and close 1 deal per year, and they would take a 7-figure salary as a result of doing that. And that was incredibly inspirational for those people that were also good and competent and had good accounts that were buying. And it encouraged those people to manage those accounts and really look after them. On the converse side of that, there were an awful lot of people that didn't make their target because, in some cases, it was down to ability, as it always is in an organization. But in many cases, it was down to the fact that for whatever reason, the customer wasn't buying at that moment. This is the number that you have to make. These are your accounts. And this is not criticism of that company. It's a criticism of every company. These are your basket of accounts. You need to go and sell to these people. If you're lucky, some of them are in buying mode. If you're unlucky, all of them can be tied into a 3-year contract with a competitor. So they're not going to buy anything. And there's no way that you can tackle that. And you're told that the way that you can address this is by going through the same motions that you've always been through. You need to do more calls. More calls means more meetings mean more proposals mean more sales. But actually, if that breaks down, because more calls does mean more meetings, but more meetings doesn't mean more proposals, because people are not interested because they're not buying. I can issue you a proposal, Andy, for servicing of your Mini. Except it's not really of much interest because you don't drive a Mini. But if I issue you the proposal, it isn't going to affect sales in any way. And this is the challenge that I think we're seeing, isn't it? That as here we are, Steve said this. The problem is when the people at the top of the organization say this is the revenue that we need to generate, and it trickles down to the people at the bottom, without checking in with those people. Can you sell to your accounts, Andy? Are they buying? Are they good accounts? Are they affluent accounts? If the answer is no to those questions, then actually it doesn't matter what target you're being set, you're not going to sell anything.
Well, there is that, but I think, there's so many great points and so many of them are linked. If, I'm reading some of them and I'm thinking, right, well, it links to behaviors. It links to providing salespeople with that guiding light. I think too often businesses, and there's been a comment about it, I forget who it was, but, the salesperson is the CEO of their business. They're given a patch and a phone, maybe not quite the same as that in the 80s, but they're given a patch and they've got to go off and make it work. And one of the best organizations I've worked for in the last 20 odd years in the B2B corporate world is when we had a clearly defined understanding of the value proposition and the entire business, sales, marketing, customer success, the services business that was supporting the technology business, understood what that path to value was for a customer. And we understood what an ideal customer was. So we were kind of there together in terms of qualifying who we sold to. We were there together selling to make sure the person, the company, the prospect in which we were selling to understood how they would realize the value. And there were a set of behaviors across the entire sales process that you could follow. You could ask yourself a question, and the question would be quite open-ended, but it would kind of force you to think about, well, have I actually taken that action? For me and my team, it gave everyone a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, because they kind of knew what they needed to do, as opposed to being left on their own. And the coaching was aligned to it. And I don't think many organizations work like that.
But I think that there are other variables that are outside of your control, though, aren't there? So, you cut up a territory into a number of different horizontal or vertical stripes, and then you apportion those stripes to various people. Now, the first thing is that you need to apportion them to the people that are most likely to be successful in those vertical stripes. You've been working in this territory and I've got loads of relationships in this, so we need to put you where you can leverage those relationships. Often that isn't done.
No.
But there's also the overwhelming assumption that everything is equal. So, you make 100 calls, you get 10 meetings, you get 1 sale. I make 100 calls, I don't get any meetings. Now, it could be that you're lucky that your accounts are more receptive than mine. It could be that you're better at it than me. One of those things you can address and one you can't. And I think that the fundamental problem with this is that when you are KPIing people on activity out, and you're not doing any research or market intelligence to understand that activity in is actually more than just the activity out that you do. Until then, you're always going to get this disparity between salespeople that are lucky and salespeople that aren't. And I think because yes, there's skill involved. Of course, there is. There are good salespeople and bad salespeople, but there are also good territories and bad territories. And if you put a salesperson, the best salesperson in the world, into a territory that isn't going to buy anything, actually, it's a moot point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chris Capon made the point earlier down. There's a way to build your sales plan from the ground up, and you basically get the account team or the account person, to do those things and build up what they believe is achievable. Now, as a sales manager, often, let's be brutally honest, we have to challenge that, because all salespeople will go, okay, I'll sandbag a bit. And that is a happy medium. Then the manager then gives it to somebody like Chris, who's the overall leader of the business. And then it's up to Chris to kind of go, well, there's a delta between what was given to me by the shareholders of the organisation and what I've got. If there's not a delta, that's absolutely great. But it's that ability to negotiate as opposed to dictate. But I think we keep coming back to, there's lots of challenges in sales, but there's lots of great things as well. And, we should be looking at how we kind of amplify those great things. Somebody said here earlier on that, you're the CEO of your own business within a large organization. You have controls these days that lots of other organizational roles don't have. And so I think we've just kind of lost our way, but there's lots of good stuff starting to happen. There's people like Chris Wyatt starting to go into schools with Darren Bailey to talk about how we actually do 2-3 hour slots with school children. And really what we need to do is get the help of everybody to be able to go, let's go into every school and start to talk about that, because 50-60% of people will be having to sell in some role that they actually do in the future, whether it's pitching for budget for R&D, whether it's pitching that why their bridge is the best solution. It all actually comes back to, something has to be sold in order for something to be bought, and that to drive the economy. And we've just got to get rid of the stigma, celebrate, as somebody said, the great and the professional, and actually just align it to standards and get to the same place that every other vocation has got to turn itself into a profession, which is aligning to a set of principles and standards, getting ethical about it. And it's not really that hard, but it's like a lot of other things that we're doing. We talked about lemmings. We've got people retiring, young people turning their back on it, and we're doing the same things over and over again as sales and business leaders. That it's just not going to work in the future. We haven't got enough sales resource. It's putting more stress on people. There's a different way to do it, and I think it's the youth. And chatting to Jordan, and as the ISP really starts to drive the EPN, the Emerging Professionals Network, these guys will be the answer. Actually, we're looking back and going, these are the mistakes that have been made, and that's our responsibility with great people like Chris and the other people on these calls, is to challenge ourselves and to challenge the people that follow behind us. Some of us have crossed the Cameron, some of us have been pilgrims and gone there. How do we get the rest of the sales leaders to follow? But actually, the individualistic change that's required will be the 20-somethings people who are actually looking forward and going, I need help for the next 20 years. Who's going to be my lifelong learning partner? Who's going to have their arm around me? How am I going to get a network? How am I going to be social? How am I going to do all of those things? And actually, I've been really inspired by people like Jasmine Dorks and Jaffa and Thomas Peach and Josh, all these people taking ownership of that and going, yeah, this is what we do for that next generation in school, but this is what we do for ourselves and our colleagues going forward. I'm psyched about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing, Andy. I think it's amazing the work that you're doing and bringing people together to address that. What about the board though, and CEOs, and helping them understand what's required within their organization to have a professional sales team that would deliver consistently? I mean, I'm reading a book at the moment called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and it's just amazing sort of listening about, how different heads in the board, responsible for product and sales and marketing, just don't really care about what each other are doing. They just care about their world,
Yeah,
Is there a job to be done with the CEO, with the board?
Yes, but most organisations aren't posting losses, so there's a big insurance number in there that the salespeople carry. So if 60% plus don't get to target, I don't see 60% of organisations saying we just missed our annual number. So there's a better way of doing things. And I think the pace, Alex, is the issue. Mm-hmm. The pace at which we try and get things done, there's never any reflection. There's never any real thinking about, okay, what is it I'm trying to do here? Why am I trying to do it? Even down to the granular level of why you're in a meeting. And I posed a question to some full-time MBA students. He said, still amazed, bless you, Adam. Still amazed that they let me loose with full-time MBA students at Cranfield.
Not as amazed as we are, mate.
There you go. As I walk in there with my Michael Caine educating Rita persona on. But the reason behind it is I asked them about KPIs. So there's a module that the full-time MBA guys do, and it's about leading sales organisations. And a lot of them take it. We're the only university in the UK that has that elective. And I asked them about input KPIs because they all went, yes, we have to have KPIs. And I went, okay, give me some. And there was like real revenue, number of meetings. It's like, so this is, and it'd be interesting to see the responses from everybody because it's a really simple one. If you're an estate agent, realtor, whatever you call them in the country that you're in the UK, we clearly call them estate agents, people who sell houses. What's the single KPI that you would measure your business on? And I'd be really interested in the answer. I'm pausing there, but I want people on the chat. What's the single KPI that you'd measure your business on?
As an estate agent? Yeah, I mean,
well, we know not what the KPIs are that they measure them on, but we know that that's a perfect example of it's been a while since I've engaged with an estate agent, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm speaking out of turn here. That they are focusing on the wrong things when they're having conversations with people. So let's be honest, Andy. You're a reasonably intelligent human being. So
I think I'm very intelligent, but we'll let the reasonable go.
So when I walk you around a house and I say to you, well, Andy, this is the kitchen and this is the bathroom. Let's be honest, I'm not adding a huge amount of value, really, am I? And the challenge, I think, is in so many of these organizations is that salespeople don't major on the bit that they know that the client doesn't. Now, you would think that this was sales 101, but it's a perfect metaphor for what happens in organizations, isn't it? Organizations are fundamentally broken how they generate revenue at the moment, evidenced by the fact that none of them are making their numbers.
And as you've gone off on a little bit of a personal issue to make sure that you work, because you've obviously had a shit estate agent experience. Back to the
haven't we all?
I've just had a light bulb moment. So, of course, my initial reaction was, well, I need to measure the success of my business based on how many houses that I can sell. But actually, given the conversation, this isn't just about estate agents. This could be the entire sales industry. Why are we not measuring performance based on the positive mental health of our people?
We could, great, but it's not. And the MBA students couldn't answer it either. And I only answered it, and I only know it thanks to a gentleman called Ed Percival, who was one of my executive coaches when I was at EMC. Fortunately, he's passed away, God rest his soul, and he was brilliant. And he was he was very, very clear. And he posed this question to me in my position as sales leader, and I struggled to answer it. And that's it. Chris Capon's got it. Thank you. New instructions. You measure that business on the people walking through the door to put their house onto the market. And if that number goes up, your business will go up. It's that simple.
Well, it is. Yeah, I guess it is. But there are other things going on here. So I've had some shocking experiences with estate agents over the years. But when we sold our last house before we moved here, we went around the estate agents in St Albans where we lived, and one of them, we had said, we are off to view this particular, I can't remember how he did it, but this guy, yeah, that's right, we said that there was this house for sale, and the house was sold to somebody else, and the estate agent was able to track down the person that was the gazumper, or the sale fell through for on this particular house, and he went and offered them our house. So he did some sleuthing to identify who the prospective buyer was, and then because we were at the top of the chain, he managed every single deal downstream of us on the chain to ensure that he would get his commission on the sale of our house. But it was due to him entirely that the buyer of our house knew that our house was coming on the market, and B, that every single, and there were probably 4 deals beneath us, that every single one of those deals went through. And when it got to the point when he had sold the house and he asked for his payment, it was the only time ever, and probably the only time it will ever happen, when I was delighted to write a check for an estate agent because he genuinely earned his money. And I think that when people give exceptional service, it doesn't feel like it's a challenge to spend the money, does it? It feels like it's a joy to do it because you feel that they've earned them.
But the point in going back to Chris is measure. Let's get measuring the right things, not the outcomes. Let's get measuring the right things, and that can be mental health and well-being. Absolutely, scientifically, it was proved that people who are happier sell 13% more than those that don't, that aren't. Okay, so that's just a great way. Would you measure people's happiness? Would you measure people's engagement? A good friend of mine who's now head of the mental health, co-head of the mental health for the ISP, he did some work with a huge hotel company to look at employee engagement and actually then the impact on customer engagement. And he could actually track the improvement in employee engagement to an almost perfect correlation to the improvement in customer engagement, and another perfect correlation to fundamentally revenue. So
you know this. So you said about you've referenced Sean Aker and his Happiness Advantage TED Talk and his research around that a number of times since we've known each other. So this is not like this is some secret. This is well known. So why is there still this belief that the answer is to increase the pressure rather than increase the happiness?
Because that's what we've always done.
Yeah,
that's what we've always done.
Dysfunctional teams can't get agreement on what's right within the business.
And it's back. I'm going to hold it up here. This is the stuff that we're doing. Visuals. There we go. Boom, boom, boom.
Nice.
Now McKinsey wrote that, so therefore it's got to be true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But actually, I really like it because actually, what we don't do scientifically, to answer your point exactly. So this is called a model, and we'll put it out on LinkedIn afterwards. This is a model for sales lifetime value. and we all measure customer lifetime value. What is the value of that customer? And then we put it into the quadrant matrix, and we look at rising stars and cash cows and manage out the business and all of those different things. So there's lots of stuff that we look at, but we never look at the individual salesperson and go, what's the value of that person to my business over what period? So when I recruit them, what do I need to be thinking about, particularly today, as to why they want to work for me? So am I an ethical sales force? Am I an investor in salespeople? Am I an investor in people? Am I going to improve that individual in the short term that they're going to be resting in my employment? How am I then going to accelerate their onboarding, and how do I do it in an individualistic manner? Because at the end of the day, it's individualization now in a technology world that gets people's buy-in. So how do you measure where their future strengths can be? Create them an individual program of self-directed learning, and then measure the impact at the end and coach them through it. Then how do you inspire them? And so effectively, how do you help their mental health? How do you give them opportunities to look after their own mental health and have a range of suppliers that can help them with either financial mental issues, with personal mental issues, with physical mental issues, on all of those things? Then how do you develop them? Which comes back to, why would I train a salesperson and they're going to leave, or develop and help a salesperson and give them skills and give them post-nominals and give them qualifications and improve them? Why would I prepare them for a sales management role or a different role? Because my competition may well pick that up. Well, what alarmingly, as Richard Branson once said, is, well, what if we don't do that and they stay? And actually, if you do engage them and inspire them and develop them, then you're engaging them in a different way, and they will stay longer. And then you do this thing, is you will retain them, or if you think about it, and this is my own thinking last night, you release them. And it's almost like a dove being released, isn't it? Which is, I have invested in you as a human being to be better than you were when you first came across the threshold for me. And that's got to be a good bloody thing.
Yeah.
And you release them into the rest of their sales career, which may bring them back in future, but you release them off and away they go. And that's inspirational leadership. That's true leadership.
It absolutely is. And you've painted a utopian picture of how you're going to take every individual, you're going to create a journey for them, and you're going to support them in their learnings and their development so that they can be the greatest contributor to your organization, their own lives, the world as a whole that they can possibly be. But how does that help me make this quarter's number? And actually, that's the problem, isn't it? The problem is that this development of individuals needs to be balanced with the commercial success. And I'm saying this to play devil's advocate.
Of course you are. That's absolutely fine. Because I'm going to come round to your house and hit you over the head with one of those guitars in a minute.
I just need to go and lock the door. Hold on.
Yeah.
No, but joking aside, this is the challenge that's always going to be pushed back, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, but we've got to get off that. We can't be on the hamster wheel going, our excuse not to do the right thing in the medium term is actually we've always got to look after the short term.
Absolutely. And isn't that one of the fundamental hamstringing problems in the sales industry, is that I know that you need to develop this account in a strategic way, but Andy, go and get some revenue out from now because we need the sale. And actually, this is about selling you something today and not the right thing tomorrow. And that doesn't build a relationship, does it?
It doesn't, but I don't think we can paint that picture of that's just what's happening. I think the interesting thing is, to me, a lot of the books that come out, and we've talked about the Jolt effect, and I think it's hugely pertinent. I'm a big fan of what Matt Dixon does. And I think in the Jolt effect, what he's done in the diagram, again, is actually look at, once you've got through the financial reasons as to why, and those blockers diminish over time, what increases is the risk. And to directly answer your question, Adam, is what we're not doing and we haven't done is we haven't created a global body of people like Chris Capon, and I'm sure there are others out there. There's people like Ben Dorks, people like John Nicholson. There's a lot of them. We haven't made it easy. We haven't broken it down into, okay, you've got a bunch of employees today who are in sales. Just look after their well-being with this program. Help them with their individualistic learning with this program. That's where you start. Now, for people you want to go out and engage in the market to be your future sales employees, this is the scripts that you use. This is what your commitment to them is. This is how you're going to go basically and invest in them. And this is your contract to improve them. And it's those little bits. And what happens is we as salespeople look at all of our customers who ghost us, and we ghost ourselves on these solutions. We look at other organizations and go, it's too hard, they're not buying. And we adopt those behaviors ourselves as salespeople, as buyers of solutions that are going to make the problem better. And we've got to jolt ourselves out of this and go, actually, this isn't that hard. And we can do it. And it's a great thing to be done. And the people I've got around me are brilliant, because nobody comes into my office to do a bad job intentionally. Mm-hmm. And how do I get into these positive mindsets that people do want to develop themselves? And I guess it comes down in certain industries, Adam, that the sales force represents such a large percentage of the population that actually giving them free will and hoping and praying that they spend it in the right way and act on it in the right way is bloody scary. If I've got 500 sellers and I give them all the opportunity to pretty much do what they want to do in learning, I could have anarchy. Well, no, that's called adult behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I think you've nailed it when you've said it's about taking a more positive view of these things. So, we're wearing the white hat, not the black hat, the glass half full, not the glass half empty. And actually, it is that attitude. I think that when you say, no one comes over the threshold to come and work for you to do a bad job deliberately. Okay, so we need to support people to do the best that they can possibly do and develop themselves in the most appropriate way. But this is a sea change for most organizations, isn't it? Because certainly sales within an organization, marketing has been through, the arrival of technology in terms of how it's going to put the message out in front of people, whether you think they're doing a good job or a bad job, they have all of these cutting edge tools at their disposal. And sales is still really quite anarchic in many ways, isn't it?
There's a lot of tools there, but we forget the humanity. And that's the challenge, I think, is the human nature of what we do is never going to go away, because trust is so implicit in how people do business. And I think we need to celebrate that. And I think, there are some, somebody put down here, there are some really poor salespeople out there, but it's not their fault. I think we need to also put the positivity on that. It is the leader of that business who basically sets the culture, sets the tone. And if you allow some of your people to, pick up the phone and go, "How you doing, Andy, mate?" It's like that's bad on you, not bad on them. And I think, in this, we're in danger on SalesTV sometimes looking at the glass half empty, and it has some challenges. We really do have some challenges, but that's for the future of business. It's not for the future of sales. Sales is the answer to the future of business and ever-growing commerciality and global trade and GDP. And we've got to re-articulate what it is. We've got to really point out the benefits and positives, and I think collectively get together and celebrate this and have some fun, because I think we can.
Yeah. On that
note. Absolutely. On that note, we are approaching our cutoff point. So thank you, gentlemen. As always, a stimulating and fascinating way to start a Tuesday. Thank you to everyone in the audience. Everyone in the audience, particularly those that have commented. So Chris, Mark, Richard, Ty, Shane, Ian, Derek, Steve, Fake, Amit, Jensen, Christina, Winfred, Andrew, Derek, Yayan, Alan, and Ludwig. Thank you all very much indeed for your comments, which have been fantastic. And it's lovely to get input from people that are in this space, helping to shape all of our thinking around this. Now, for anyone that is interested, we will be running another show, SalesTV, tonight for the US market, starting at 5 o'clock UK time. So
should we not say America's market? Because
what did I say?
Well, it's
America.
US, but it also includes Canada and South America, right?
It does. It does indeed. Yes, the Americas. Thank you very much, Alex. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that as well. And in the meantime, thank you all very much indeed. Have a great week, everybody, and we hope to see you all again next week.
Bye all. Enjoy your week.
Bye-bye.